In this lesson, we're going to create a custom content type. The site that we're building is intended to display recipes and events, along with the pages and blog posts that we've been looking at so far. Recipes and events should be their own content types in your Drupal site because they need to portray data in a very different way from blog posts and basic pages. Recipes, for example, need to have information such as meal type and ingredients. Events should include information such as how to join the event, the date and time of the event, and the phone number. This means that they're going to have different fields so that the form is different, but it also means that the information is going to be segmented in different ways. This is not only valuable for content entry and presentation on your site, but also for syndication of your content. If third parties are going to pull your content into their environments, then they need a logical structure behind that content so that they can make sure that the fields and the information map appropriately into the structure of the recipient environment. A really good example would be an Add to Calendar button on an event. Typically, those Add to Calendar buttons will allow a user to add that event to their personal calendar, whether it be a Google Calendar or iCal or Outlook or something else. It's really important in these cases that the content is separated out so that the date and time are their own field and they're recognized as a date and time field. The same would be true with the location. So in order to create a new content type, we're going to go under Manage, Structure, Content Types. This is the same place we went to manage our existing content types, and it's also where we'll go to add a new content type using the big blue button. The content type that we're going to add first is the event content type. Notice when I named my content type, I also got a machine name on the right-hand side of the field, and that machine name is a unique name for the database, and it's not going to have anything but alphanumeric characters and underscores in that machine name. The description field will help your content editors know whether or not this is the correct content type to use for content that they're entering. It's important to know that once you add a piece of content using a specific content type, you can't change the content type for that content later on. So you want to make sure that your users start with the correct content type right from the very beginning. The next item on this form are a series of tabs that set the general information about this content type or the default behavior for this content type. I'm going to scroll down here and we're going to set these. Submission form settings allows us to change the field label for the title field. The title field is your header level 1 on the page. Typically it'll be called title, and in the case of event, title is also the appropriate name. If, however, this were a content type for a person or an individual, then you might want to label this field name instead of title. Publishing options set the default behavior in terms of whether or not the content is published, promoted to the front page, or has other behaviors associated with it. In this case, we're going to allow the content to be published by default, but we're not going to promote it to the front page. Language settings is available on this particular form here because we have enabled multilingual settings on this site. It will not display if your site is not multilingual. We're going to skip that for now and move on to display settings. This setting determines whether or not the submitted by information will appear in the teaser and on the node itself, so the date and time and the author of the particular node. In this case, we do not want display author and date information checked, so we're going to uncheck that. Menu settings determine whether or not it's easy to add the particular piece of content to a menu directly from the node form. And in the case of events, we don't want that, so we're going to uncheck main navigation. We'll go ahead and save this. And now we're able to manage the fields on our content type. Right now, the only fields that exist, aside from the necessary title field, is the body field. The first field that we're going to add here is going to be an existing field. The image field that's used in the article content type. Let's go take a look at that. We're going to see that on the article content, there's an image field. If I scroll down to a page content, there's no image. On events, we'd like to have an image. Perhaps there's a flyer or something enticing to draw the user to that event. So we want to add that image field, and we want it to behave exactly the same way that it does on the article content type. And for that reason, we're going to make it easy on ourselves and use the existing field rather than create a new one. Keep in mind that if you wanted any of the behavior to be different in this particular content type, then you would probably want to consider creating a new image field, not using the existing one. I'm going to go ahead and add a field. I'm going to reuse an existing field, and the one that I'm going to choose is image. I can add help text if I want, which is always a nice thing to do for your content editors, and I can set whether or not this field is required. In this case, this field should not be required. I can give this a default image, so if I want every event to have some kind of image that goes with it, if the user doesn't upload a new image for the event, I can add that here. I can also change the allowed file extensions, which is really helpful. Let's say that I want to allow PDFs in here. Now, in this case, I actually don't because I want this to behave like an image, but I could allow PDFs to be uploaded into this field. The file directory field will determine where any uploads are stored in your directory. So in this case, I might want to make sure that they're stored in an images directory, making it easier to locate them. In fact, I might want to be even more specific, and I might want to do images events, which means that there will be an images directory with a subdirectory inside of it called events. If I want to be very specific about the minimum and maximum size and resolution of the image, I can set that here. I can also determine how much space a user is allowed to take up with the size of their image. At the very bottom, you have Enable Alt Field and Alt Field Required options. For accessibility considerations, it's really important that you make sure that your users add alt text to their images, and requiring alt text is a great way to make that happen. I'm going to go ahead and save these settings. Now I have two fields on my event content type, body and image. The next field that I want to add is the field that will help the user know how to join the event. For the purposes of this demonstration, let's say that every event that Tastykakes for All will hold is going to be a webinar. This field, therefore, should be a field that allows for a link to join that webinar. This is going to be a new field rather than using one that already exists. And the field type is going to be link. The title will be webinar link. Each event will only have one webinar link, so we'll leave this value to 1. And now I can enter help text if I want. I can make it a required field. I can also set default values just like I could with the image field. I can set this so that it will only accept internal links or external links, or so that it will accept both. In this case, I'm going to be flexible and let it accept both. I can also determine here whether or not the user is able to have text that displays in place of the link. So whether you want the URL to display or if you want human readable text to display. In this case, I'm going to disable link text because I want the URL to show. We now have 3 fields in our event content type. Let's go ahead and add an event content, an event node, and we're going to see how this looks. Using some dummy text here to describe the event. Scroll down and I'm going to add an image. I'm just going to use the butterfly. Notice that the alt text is required, has the little star next to it. So I would not be able to save this form without putting alt text on this image. And now I need to add the link to the webinar. In this case, I don't have a URL to go to, so I'm just going to link this to Google. And then I can go ahead and save and publish this event. So I'm going to scroll down here and you'll see that this event displays with very basic settings right now. It doesn't look very good. We're going to change that later. And it still needs key elements. It needs the date and time, and it also needs the phone number. So we've now created a custom content type, the event content type. It doesn't display very well yet, which we'll be fixing, and it still needs 2 more fields, telephone number and date and time. These 2 fields are more advanced in their configuration needs, so we'll be adding them in the next lessons.